The world is changing. Europe is still recovering from the Napoleonic Wars, but the ambitions of its empires remain intact. Across the Atlantic, the Spanish Empire is crumbling. One by one, its colonies in Latin America have declared independence, throwing off centuries of rule. But freedom is fragile, and the newly formed nations stand at a crossroads. Will they thrive as sovereign states, or will Europe strike back, reclaiming its lost territories? In the shadows, monarchs plot. The Holy Alliance, Russia, Austria, and Prussia. Whispers of restoring Spain's grip on its former lands. Even France, fresh off its own revolution, eyes the Western Hemisphere with interest. And then there's the United States. A young republic, still defining itself, still haunted by the scars of the War of 1812. It is not yet a superpower, but something has shifted. A new, defiant America is emerging. The speech that shook the world. On December 2, 1823, President James Monroe stands before Congress. He delivers a speech that at first seems like just another address, but buried within his words is a declaration so bold, so unprecedented, that it will reshape the future of the Western Hemisphere forever. The message is clear. Europe, stay out of the Americas or face the consequences. The United States will not tolerate any new attempts at colonization or interference. But there's a problem. America has no real way to enforce this. Its navy is small, its army weaker than those of the great European powers. So why make such a dangerous declaration? Is this sheer bravado, or is there something more? The silent hand behind the Monroe Doctrine. In a shocking twist, Monroe is not acting alone. Britain, the world's strongest naval power, secretly supports the doctrine. But why? The answer is simple: self-interest. The British have no desire to see Spain, France, or Russia regaining control in Latin America. If Europe recolonizes the Americas, Britain's trade empire will suffer. Britain's Foreign Minister George Canning even suggests a joint declaration with the US, but Monroe and his Secretary of State John Quincy Adams refuse. They want this to be America's statement. It is a high-stakes game, a gamble that could define the nation's role in global affairs. A dangerous game begins. Spain is enraged. It still dreams of restoring its empire, but without military strength, it can do little. France considers intervening, but fears British naval power. Russia, which has been expanding in the Pacific Northwest, is furious. Tsar Alexander I had plans for settlements along the west coast, but now the United States is warning him off. Britain smirks in the background, letting the US take the credit while it enjoys the benefit. The doctrine's unintended consequences. For years, the Monroe Doctrine is little more than words on paper. The US doesn't yet have the power to act on it, but over the decades, its meaning evolves in ways no one could have predicted. In the late 1800s, it is used to justify interventions in Latin America. By the early 1900s, Theodore Roosevelt adds his big stick policy. America will not just warn Europe, it will actively police the Western Hemisphere. During the Cold War, the doctrine takes a new form. Now, instead of European empires, the US uses it to justify opposing Soviet influence in Latin America, a legacy that still echoes today. The Monroe Doctrine changed history, marking America's first major step into global politics. It was both a promise and a threat. Some see it as a shield that protected Latin America from European domination. Others argue that it opened the door for American dominance in the region. But one thing is certain: December 2, 1823 was the day the United States declared itself not just a nation, but a force to be reckoned with. What do you think? Was the Monroe Doctrine a bold act of protection, or the first step in America's rise to power at the expense of its neighbors? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more hidden stories of history.